Okay, hey, very welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Omega. A little about them. They are founded back in 1848. They are Swiss-made in origin, and they are part of the Swatch Group's luxury tier. But don't let it fool you when I say that they're part of the Swatch Group, because they weren't just one of the brands that were revived or saved by the Swatch Group. The merger of Omega and Tissot was actually a precursor to what will eventually be known as the Swatch Group. So their story and their history is a little bit more pure than some of the other brands within the group. Now, in terms of the type of watch, I consider this an everyday outdoor adventure type of watch. And some key common characteristics and design, which are looking for something within this space. Of course, you're going to find something that is sporty, legible, tough, and capable. This is the Seamaster Aqua Terra 2503.50, and it is the original early 2000s neo-vintage first generation Aqua Terra, which was basically Omega's take on the ultra-versatile everyday adventure watch. Now, in terms of the pricing, this exact unit is going pre-owned for $3,150 from Belmont Watches. So big shout out to Belmont for lending this piece in. It's actually the sister watch to a watch that I own and that I wear very regularly, which is the same generation Aqua Terra, except it is the Railmaster variation. And I do have it on a Forstner flat link bracelet for more of a retro aesthetic. But I've definitely struggled with this piece because it's called to me so many times because of how good it is. And I love my Railmaster, mind you, but this has everything the Railmaster has and more. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, another big shout out to Belmont Watches for lending this piece in. Guys, this thing is gorgeous. It is quite reflective because of that glossy lacquer dial. Of course, those high polished indices. It all just flows. And of course, it's going to draw some comparisons to this bad boy right here. But look at how matte the dial and how flat. And honestly, the spacing on the dial is a bit more open and it just makes the dial feel bigger. While as here, I do feel like it's a bit more balanced. And again, it really taps into that Rolex Explorer I vibe for so much less, even when you're looking at similar Rolex Explorers of the same era. So as much as I love my Railmaster, I have to say, clearly the Aqua Terra has some pros over it. Of course, I do have this on my Forstner flat link, which, I mean, come on, it looks great. You could easily put this on one of the many different Forstner options. You could even do a brushed flat link, or you could do a bracelet that looks very similar to this one, which also looks very similar to the latest generation, which is one of the things that makes this watch and reviewing it, and in the year 2025, that much more relevant, because the Aqua Terra has returned back to this very simple formula, and it works. And but it costs a lot, and this doesn't. Again, about $3,000 and some change, you can have something very timeless, very collectible. But let's get into the specs here. 39 millimeters in diameter, just 11.1 millimeters thick, and then 46.5 millimeters lug to lug. Stainless steel, polished, and of course brushed. You're getting a double dome sapphire with an inner anti-reflective coating, fixed polished bezel, and of course a signed crown that is also screw down, which is nice. Now, in terms of the movement, take a look at that. Yes, that is your automatic Omega caliber 2500. This is a chronometer movement. It has a 48-hour power reserve, so nice full 2-day power reserve. Beats at 3.5 hertz or 25,200 vibrations per hour in terms of that beat rate, which is very common now for modern Omegas to be there beating again at the 3.5 hertz versus the full 4 hertz, and of course slightly faster than your basic 3 hertz. So don't be discouraged. Also, this has their coaxial escapement, which is quite fantastic. Now, in terms of the dial, it is gloss black with applied indices. You have the date at 3 o'clock which I think it's really nicely done. It's quite hidden, well integrated, if you will. There's not a lot drawing attention to it. It's just kind of there. But if you don't want a date, you can try something like that, right? Very cool. Which it actually even has a slightly different movement. This one, though, in terms of its specs, is better. So there's that. Now, it is going to be using some C3 with Superluminova, and it is just going to be along those outer plops there on the outside of the indices, as well as a couple of slivers of pop there on the handset. Now, getting into the water resistance, 150 meters or 500 feet. So that is just more than enough for anything outside of like dedicated saturation diving. So this is going to be absolutely great. And it was one of my favorite things is I was able to just run this under the sink and then wipe it down with a microfiber towel. And guess what? All the grime, all the grit, all gone. Now, of course, you still do get a couple of the occasional fingerprints on that beautifully high polished areas there on the surface. But other than that, this thing is a looker. Now, it does have 20 millimeter lugs. So if you wanted to put this on a strap or something like that, it would also still look fantastic. Maybe a sailcloth, something high end, right? But it does come on this really nice 3-link bracelet. It's a bit dated, but I think it's aging well. Fully brushed, even on the sides there. 3-link, you're getting solid male end links, pin and collar construction. And then it does taper down from 20 millimeters to this very cool push button clasp, which, as you guys can see here, has a little slide mechanism. Now, the slide mechanism is so that you can open it easier to get it on your hand, or to say over your hand, as you can see. Now, imagine if that was just here, that would be a bit more of a struggle. So I think that's cool. Also, just one pusher is interesting. But if I go like that, hey, I can't close it. So I just have to pull, bam, and there you have it. So as you guys can see, easy to get on. We won't get into the full kind of wristwatch portion, or I should say wrist check portion, because I just wanted to kind of change up the background there. But again, huge shout out to Belmont Watches, guys. I believe they marked this as sold on their website so that nobody would potentially buy it while I'm trying to squeeze in the review. So whenever you do follow the links, definitely look again, and maybe it will be available for you to add to cart. So with that said, let's go ahead and get it back on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, or 19 centimeters in circumference wrist, it wears pretty beautifully. Check that out. Exactly like my, at least in terms of the case and bracelet, pretty much just like it, because it does, my Railmaster did originally come with that bracelet, again, aftermarket fitted there. But it wears similar because it's the exact same case. Although I will say again, when you get to that dial furniture, the layout is much nicer. Now, some of you were noticing, hey, what happened? There was more contrast on the dial before. Well, that's because I had a poster board to reflect off of. Now it's reflecting off of a dark camera lens as well as a dark room. Can't really have the poster board right now because I'm going to be doing some zooming, because if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to notice the watch seems a lot larger. But if I keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here, you're going to see that it's actually quite nice still. Very nicely centered, nicely wraps around the wrist as well, as you guys can see. Beautiful hold there, very flowing and organic. But yeah, so now again, it's reflecting off of a dark room. Also another reflecting board. If you're wondering about the iridescent sheen that's there, guys, it is a reflection because it's only on one side. It's not on this side, so it's not a coating. It's just a reflection. And again, that helps it fill. As you can see, a lot of the reflection right now is just blacked out. So you're not getting to see those details, versus here on top, depending on the angle, that is going to help you fill just a little bit of that negative space. So, this is a good looking watch. My goodness, look at that. And again, early 2000s neo vintage. So, I mean, this is a watch for right around $3,000 that I think carries a lot of brand cachet. Omega's doing well. The Aqua Terra line is doing well. So something like this, again, it just gives you that little extra, especially when you're thinking about luxury products where you're thinking a lot of it has to do with brand perception and that kind of added subjective value proposition. And I think, again, it's quite a value. It is very, very nice, quite handsome. But with that said, let's get into some Lume shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, ready? Let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Yes, still quite good. Now, no, there's not as much Lume as there is on a Railmaster, but it definitely does the job here. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice with these colors, textures, and finishes running like in less than optimal lighting. And as you guys can see here, guys, still very legible, but man, that deep glossy lacquered dial, it is something to behold. And again, it gives this watch that versatility, because as rugged as it is, you're also still going to have something that is quite sparkly and shiny and glossy and feels something special and luxurious. And I can appreciate that. Yes, there are other watches just as capable that don't have the brand cachet associated with Omega that you could select, and many of them have been featured on my channel. And yeah, maybe if you want a Rolex Explorer I, then just save up for a Rolex Explorer I. But for you, those of you that just like the idea, this executes that idea to a very high level for not that much money, and I like that about it. Now, getting back into the details here, guys, closing thoughts. On the wrist, this wears very thin and sleek without feeling overly flat, thanks to its signature sculpted curves. In terms of model variants, this generation of Aqua Terra was available in a few different dial colors, as well as a smaller 36mm case option. Actually, and I think that's cool, because this thing is nice as is, but for those of you that want something a little smaller, that option was there for you. Now, in terms of comparable models, guys, speaking of variations, of course, there were also Railmaster variations in various sizes as well. So I guess I should circle back to that. Now, in terms of comparable models, like I was going to, this clearly aims at the Explorer I with a versatile everyday adventure type of package. And this popular generation is an ultra high value option comparatively. Now, in terms of the bottom line here, guys, these early 2000s first gen Aqua Terras just have, already proven to have some, in terms of being increasingly desirable and collectible. Like, these are not the easiest to find, especially one with all the links that are in here where it fits even around my wrists. So there's a lot to like, but I do like that these are definitely desirable and collectible while not being hyper inflated or unattainable due to kind of hype and investment driven price points. So if you've been searching for a worthy Rolex Explorer I alternative, this generation of Aqua Terra may be exactly what you've been looking for. It even makes a strong case compared to the latest, less value rich, albeit more impressively spec'd, current Omega Aqua Terra models. Now, which these did, kind of return to the more bare bones simplified layout of this generation. So I think if you like this, you might like the more modern version even more, or you might just like this and be happy with it. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please like, and if you're new, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys, and thank you, Belmont.